Never forget that the fascists have done this. It was May 1936. I was gazing at the sight of my father's body prone on a bed. It was covered with large blue bruises, particularly visible against the pale exposed skin of his thighs and legs. Then Elizabeth let the blanket fall again. Frank was lying in the spare room, as it was known, at Singletree, a cold room which I can never remember being used for guests. In every sense it appeared to be spare. In fact, I felt more worried by Dada's absence from the familiar warm conjugal bedchamber than the injuries, which were beyond comprehension. Nevertheless, I did understand perfectly well that wicked people had been responsible for this reversal of the natural order, and they were called fascists. Somehow I realized that they did not know my father personally. My bewildered sense of the grown-up world, that there were huge rights and wrongs, quite separate from the petty rights and wrongs of the nursery, began at that moment. The injuries had indeed been inflicted by fascists. Frank had attended a meeting addressed by Sir Oswald Mosley in Oxford Town Hall, out of curiosity, and had ended up being severely beaten up by thugs who acted as officials at the event. Like their leader, they were dressed in black silk shirts, black trousers, with heavy black buckled belts and thick boots. The battle began when some protesters, mainly but not entirely trade unionists, started calling out "Red Front," giving a clenched fist salute in place of the fascist straight arm, and went on from there. Frank plunged in on behalf of the protesters. By the time the police intervened, as well as the livid bruises, he'd acquired 2 black eyes, received severe injuries to his kidneys from the blackjacks wielded by the thugs, and was suffering from concussion. Afterwards, Frank remembered catching sight of Sir Oswald Mosley in the midst of his ordeal, still standing calmly on the platform, like Napoleon, on a hillock, while the battle proceeded on the plain. After that, Frank joined the Oxford Labour Party. In his autobiography, he claimed that he'd been considering the step for some time. After all, Elizabeth was already a keen socialist and had worked for the Labour Party at the general election which preceded their marriage by a week. His Conservative friends, on the other hand, suggested teasingly that it was the effect of being knocked on the head that turned him towards Labour. This was an alternative version of the story which had Frank falling off a horse at the Bullingdon point-to-point, losing consciousness and waking up a socialist. Both stories were told to me by loving friends of his when I first grew up, as though I would find them as amusing as they did. To me, both stories actually illustrated the same thing: how astonishing, even laughably eccentric, Frank's behaviour was considered to be by his contemporaries in wishing to join the Labour Party. So there had to be some alternative explanation to political conviction, or mere idealism. The fact was that this radical step, as unquestionably as it was for a man who had been working at the Conservative Central Office only a few years earlier, did take place in the immediate aftermath of the Oxford Town Hall meeting. As Frank wrote himself, "After the Mosley meeting, I became certain that there was only one side in politics that I could ever join in the future, and that there was no time to be lost in joining it. So politics, shared Labour politics, came to be the dominating atmosphere of my childhood." Not only did both Frank and Elizabeth stand in turn for the Oxford parliamentary seat, but Elizabeth nursed 2 separate parliamentary constituencies, beginning in 1937, shortly after the birth of her 3rd child. Frank became Labour councillor for the Iffley ward of Oxford not long afterwards, his first conversion, which was from the Toryism of his youth and background to Labour. As for Sir Oswald Mosley himself, so traumatic was this town hall incident in my childish mind, told and retold with Napoleon on the hillock very much the villain of the piece, that his name resonated with evil long before his imprisonment in the Second World War. There was, however, to be a postscript to the story, which has always seemed to me to demonstrate perfectly my father's huge zest for the Christian doctrine of forgiveness, as well as his innocent weakness.